What Thanksgiving feast would be complete without pumpkin soup? I know not everybody does soup at Thanksgiving, but I happen to love it. And so I am adapting a recipe from my Colorado Color, a palette of tastes from the Denver Junior League. I'm a Colorado girl, so I have the entire collection, making this curry pumpkin soup. And as you'll see here on the screen, here is the recipe. 1 cup chopped onion, 1 garlic clove crushed, 1/4 cup or 1/2 stick of butter, 1 teaspoon curry powder, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon coriander, 1/4 teaspoon crushed red pepper flakes, 3 cups of chicken broth, 1 15-ounce can of pumpkin, 1 cup of half and half, sour cream, chopped fresh chives, and toasted pumpkin seeds. I'm doing a couple of different things in that I am using, instead of regular dairy, I use the organic Trader Joe's coconut milk. It is fabulous along with the curry. I just love the consistency and the flavor that it gives to it. So you can mix and match and do anything that you want to your recipe. Just have fun with it. A lot of times I will also put on the top some crumbled goat cheese, which just literally adds to the flavor. So let's get going. Anytime you're prepping and cooking for the holidays, it's a great idea to start with some of your basics. So certainly for my turkey, for my pumpkin soup, and many other things, onions are a big part of it. So I have 4 out here, and I'm just going to slice and dice all of those up. They don't have to be super small for my pumpkin soup, and they don't have to be super small for what I'm going to stuff inside the turkey. But I'll be using them for lots of different dishes throughout the holiday season. And then, of course, fresh garlic. We will be starting with that. I have rosemary, fresh out of my garden, for my turkey, not only to cook on it, but to garnish it with. And then typically I have sage, but unfortunately my sage did not make it through the summer season here in Phoenix. So I will be replanting sage. I love to use quality organic pumpkin in my pumpkin soup. 2 brands that I'm highlighting today, Sprouts brand, which I love because, of course, if you read the label, it is organic pumpkin. Trader Joe's is actually my favorite. And again, if you read the label, it is organic pumpkin. No extra additives, no preservatives, no salt, or any of that. So I will be using this in my pumpkin soup. And I love to use organic coconut cream milk, or rather organic coconut milk from Trader Joe's in with my pumpkin soup. This makes it dairy-free if you have anyone who's lactose intolerant. And I just love the little extra bit that it gives because I make a curry pumpkin soup, as you can see from the recipe here. And it's definitely a showstopper, and it's kind of fun. It's one of those things where every time my kids come home, who are adults now, when I ask them, what do you want me to cook? 2 of my soups, my tomato basil and my pumpkin soup, always come to mind for them. So I'm happy to have started a tradition that they enjoyed growing up and continue that into their adulthood. Now, if you watched my final Thanksgiving shopping trip to Costco, you may recall that I purchased this double set of these amazing, I never say it right, Tramontina cast iron, enameled cast iron pans to cook in. So I'm going to be testing them out today for the first time with my pumpkin soup. My family and I love this pumpkin soup, so I always double the recipe. So the first thing that it calls for is butter, 1/2 stick. So I'm actually using an entire stick, and I just wing it. I buy the organic butter at Costco in bulk, and then I just kind of wing it. I figure you can't have too much butter within reason, and so a little bit extra is not going to be so bad. And then I'm just going to turn this on medium-low. The butter's in. I simply cover it, allow that to fully melt, and then we will add double the amount of onion and garlic. I like to monitor my butter so that it doesn't start boiling or get overheated. I just stir it up a little, and pretty quick we'll be adding the onion and garlic. Here is my diced up onion and my garlic. It's 2 cups of onion and 2 cloves of garlic because I am making double the recipe. I'm just going to add them both in there together and cook them till they're lightly transparent. Clean up all my mess here. Swirl it around to get the butter mixed in on all the good stuff. Put the lid back on and let it just simmer in there for about 5 minutes. And don't be afraid to give those a good stir while you're waiting for your 5 or so minutes to go by. All right, can I just say that so far I'm loving this new pan. So these are nicely translucent, cooked just like I want them. Now I'm going to add in the spices. So it calls for, and I'm going to be honest, most of the time I just wing it, but because I am doing a video, I'm going to do it the right way. It calls for a teaspoon of curry. I always add a little bit extra. I make it heaping. I'm adding 2 because keep in mind I am doubling the recipe. Teaspoon of the curry. Calls for a half a teaspoon of salt. So I'm pouring this in so that I don't over salt if it spills. Salt. And then it calls for a quarter of a teaspoon of coriander. So I'm going to put 2 in there. And then also crushed red peppers. And I like it a little spicy, so I'm just going to do my crushed red peppers in there. We'll stir all of that up really good. Get it in there, and then we're going to just allow that to cook for a few extra minutes as well, and then we will move on with the pumpkin and the broth. Now, the recipe doesn't call for it, but I always sprinkle in about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of ground pepper. Because, again, I like things spicy. You don't have to do this. It's just something that I do. I love to make my own stock. And, of course, as you know, I love to store them in my glass jars. And so this is not really olives. This is homemade chicken broth that I have prepared for making my pumpkin soup. And then I have a little bit of turkey broth. I will skim off the fat. If you cook turkey or chicken or make stock, put it in the refrigerator, allow this to rise to the top, and then you can just skim it off and use it for something else if you desire. Now, I order all organic pasture-raised meats, and so I do use those fats for a lot of different things, including making dog food. Now we're going to add in our broth. So I've got 2 cups measured out here. 2 cups. A little bit over, and 2 cups. Put that in there. We'll let that warm up and simmer for about 20 minutes, and then we'll add the pumpkin. All right, we've simmered and sauteed, and now it's time to add in the pumpkin. So it's a little hot, and as I mentioned, I'm doubling my recipe, so I'm going to use 1 can of my Sprouts organic pumpkin right there. Use my little spatula thingy to get all of it out of there. Can number 2. It's funny how it's different, very different color. Makes me wonder if the pumpkin comes from a different region, if it has to do with the age of it. See what I mean? The different colors. Now we're just going to stir it all up and let it simmer for another 5 to 10 minutes. I believe the recipe calls for about 5. I like to do it a little longer. I just feel like it sets the flavor. Then we'll be adding in the coconut milk, and we will be blending it, pureeing it in the blender. So we're simply going to turn the heat off now that it has simmered, and I'm going to remove the lid. Let it cool down for about 30 minutes before we add in the coconut milk. So the soup is cooled, and now I'm just going to stir in my coconut milk. Just going to stir it in here. And I have a little bit extra here. So our final step is to blend it, puree it so that it is smooth and fantastic. So I'm just going to put it into my Ninja. You can also use just any kind of blender or food processor. If you have an immersion blender, you can use that as well. But because I have the Ninja and it does things great, I'm going to use that. What I will tell you that I don't love about the Ninja is that it's plastic. And you know me, I like glass or anything that doesn't ultimately potentially leach microplastics into my human psyche. But I'm an 80-20 girl or a 90-10 girl, so that's not always going to work out the exact way that I want it. But because my soup is cooled, it's not going to exacerbate the plastics nearly as much as it would if you put piping hot into the plastic. So I just do it very quickly, And let me show you what that looks like. And here we go. Low to get it started, and then higher, and then higher. And I usually blend it for about a minute so that it gets all the onions and the larger chunks totally pureed and fabulous. And then I'll be pouring it into my glass jars to store. Now, don't forget to toast up your pumpkin seeds and possibly a little dab of Greek yogurt on the top, those fresh chives, and you are good to go. So now that it's all pureed, I'm just simply going to open up the little lid here and pour it into my jars. And you can make this ahead of time, which is what I like to do. Don't overfill the jars, and then you can simply freeze it, and it's good to go for Thanksgiving Day. Pop it out the day before, put it in the refrigerator, let it defrost naturally. Then you can just simply warm it before you serve it with your Thanksgiving feast. I'm Jackie Almer. Make sure you watch the entire playlist here on YouTube for my Thanksgiving holiday feast, as well as grab my guide over at lowertoxiclife.com. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and if you have any comments, questions, leave them below. I would love to hear what you're serving for your Thanksgiving holiday.